The faint, lingering trace of my mother's signature rose and jasmine perfume still drifts into my quietest moments like an unwelcome ghost. It used to wrap around me like the softest cashmere blanket when I was a frightened little girl waking from nightmares or nursing a scraped knee on the playground. She would pull me close, press a gentle kiss to my forehead, and the scent would make everything feel safe again. But on that cold, relentless rainy evening, as I stood trembling in the grand, echoing foyer of my childhood home with raindrops, still sliding off my soaked coat and pulling on the cold marble tiles beneath my feet, that same familiar fragrance twisted my stomach into tight, nauseating knots of dread and betrayal. My name is Elena, and this is the raw, unflinching, heart-wrenching story of how my own flesh and blood, the very people who gave me life and raised me under their roof, threw me away like yesterday's worthless, broken trash the instant I forced those terrifying words past my trembling lips. I'm broke. I've lost everything I worked for. And the cruelest, most devastating twist of all, my husband Mark had already known with cold certainty that they would react exactly that way. He had been quietly, methodically preparing for it behind the scenes, counting on their conditional love to do the heavy lifting of my destruction while he positioned himself to walk away richer, freer, and completely unscathed. Let me take you back with me slowly, moment by tender and painful moment, so you can truly feel the warmth, the laughter, and the false sense of security that once defined the life I believed was unbreakable. I grew up in a sprawling, sun-drenched mansion nestled on the gentle, rolling hills just outside the bustling city center. The long, curving driveway was lined with ancient oak trees whose leaves whispered in the breeze, and the front gardens were a living masterpiece of perfection, meticulously manicured rows of vibrant rose, bushes that bloomed in cascading waves of deep crimson, soft blush pink, sunny yellow, and delicate white, their sweet fragrance always mixing with the rich, earthy scent of freshly watered soil after a summer rain. In the center courtyard stood a grand marble fountain, its crystal clear water splashing gently and rhythmically like a constant, soothing lullaby that I could hear from my bedroom window on quiet nights. Inside the house, every room carried its own signature scent, polished dark wood floors, fresh-cut lily arranged daily in heavy crystal vases, and whatever gourmet meal our longtime housekeeper was preparing in the expansive kitchen, the aroma of garlic, herbs, and slow-roasted meats drifting through the air like an invitation to my father was a commanding, larger-than-life presence in every sense, a self-made real estate tycoon with broad shoulders, a deep, resonant voice that could fill an entire ballroom, and an unshakable confidence that made people sit up straighter when he entered a room. He would often invite me into his dark, oak-paneled study lined floor to ceiling with leather-bound books, gleaming awards, and framed newspaper clippings of his biggest deals. There, late into the evenings when the rest of the house was quiet, he would sit me on his knee, ruffle my hair with his large hand, and tell me epic, larger-than-life stories about how he started with nothing but a beat-up old pickup truck, one rundown fixer-upper property, and a dream. Success isn't handed to anyone on a silver platter. Elena, he'd say, his eyes shining with fierce pride as he looked at me. Our family earns it every single day through hard work, sharp decisions, and never showing weakness. You're going to carry that legacy even further than I did. I can already see it in you, my bright little star. My mother was the living embodiment of refined elegance and social perfection. Even on lazy weekend mornings, she was always impeccably dressed, her makeup flawless, her posture straight and graceful like a ballerina's. She hosted legendary charity galas in our home, where massive crystal chandeliers cast dancing rainbow prisms across the walls, the air thick with the bubbly scent of expensive champagne. fresh orchids in towering arrangements, and delicate past canapes. She taught me from a young age how to smile perfectly for photographs, how to carry myself with quiet grace in any room, and how to make small talk that left people feeling charmed. But looking back now, her love always seemed to glow the brightest and warmest when I achieved something visible and impressive, a good report card, a new client win, or a feature in a local magazine. My older sister Claire was the undisputed golden child, the one everyone in the family and our social circle adored without question. She was tall and poised with the same elegant features as our mother, sailed through school with effortless straight A's, married a respected heart surgeon named David right after college in a wedding almost as lavish as mine would later be, and quickly gave birth to two adorable children, little Sophia with her bouncy golden curls and infectious laugh, and Ethan with his chubby cheeks and endless energy. At every family gathering, they would run straight to me across the lawn with sticky fingers from cookies or ice cream, throwing their small arms around my legs and calling me Auntie Elena, in voices so sweet and pure they could melt even the coldest heart. I was always the creative, dreamy, artistic one in the family, the outlier who didn't follow the safe, predictable corporate path like Claire. Instead, I poured my entire heart and soul into interior design. I studied with a burning passion that kept me sketching late into the nights under my desk lamp. And after graduation, I launched my own intimate boutique firm with nothing but a small loan, a dream, and relentless determination. Within just a few years, I was transforming cold, sterile luxury penthouses and sprawling family estates into warm, soul-stirring sanctuaries that clients said felt like finally coming home after a long journey. One wealthy widow, after walking through her fully renovated living room for the first time, broke down in happy tears, hugged me tightly, and whispered, "Elena, you don't just arrange furniture or pick colors. You heal entire spaces and the people who live in them. You have a true gift." Life in those early years felt like a carefully painted masterpiece, full of vibrant color, light, and unbreakable joy. Weekends almost always revolved around lavish family brunches at my parents' house. The long mahogany dining table would groan under the weight of beautiful platters, warm, buttery croissants fresh from the local bakery and still steaming, bowls overflowing with ripe strawberries glistening with morning dew, wedges of artisanal cheeses, thinly sliced smoked salmon, and multiple pots of rich Colombian coffee whose deep, comforting aroma filled the entire sunlit dining room and spilled out into the hallways. Laughter would bounce and echo off the high vaulted ceilings as my father told his favorite, exaggerated stories from his early career. My mother fussed lovingly over everyone's plates, making sure no one left even slightly hungry. And Claire shared polished anecdotes from her perfect life. After the meal, my niece and nephew would chase each other across the vast manicured lawn in wild games of tag, their high-pitched shrieks of delight mixing beautifully with the distant chirping of birds, the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze, and the occasional splash from the fountain. Mark and I would drive home afterward in our sleek silver car with the windows rolled all the way down, warm wind tangling my long hair, his strong hand resting comfortably and possessively on my knee as we talked about nothing important and everything that mattered. Those simple drives made me feel completely invincible, like the beautiful world we had built together could never be touched by hardship. I met Mark at one of those glamorous, high society charity galas 8 years ago. The grand ballroom sparkled and glowed under massive crystal chandeliers that cast a soft, romantic golden light over every surface. Soft, sultry jazz music floated through the air like liquid silk, mingling with the constant delicate clink of champagne flutes, the low murmur of refined conversations, and the faint scent of expensive colognes and perfumes. I was standing near the elegant dessert table in a flowing emerald green silk gown that hugged my figure, just right and caught the light beautifully with every small movement, absent-mindedly nibbling on a rich chocolate truffle. When he approached me with that warm, confident, magnetic smile that instantly lit up his entire face, his deep brown eyes locked onto mine with intense focus, as if the rest of the crowded room had simply faded away. "You look like someone who sees true beauty in places most people walk right past without noticing," he said, his voice smooth and genuine, wrapping around me like velvet. We ended up talking for hours that night, tucked away in a quiet, candlelit corner away from the main crowd, sharing intimate stories about hidden little art galleries we both loved. Dream travels to places like the endless lavender fields of Provence in full bloom, and the quiet personal hopes we each carried deep in our hearts. He was a successful business consultant, articulate, ambitious, always knowing exactly the right words and timing to make me feel truly seen, deeply valued, and passionately desired. 6 months later, we were married in a breathtaking oceanfront ceremony that my parents funded without a single moment of hesitation or question. The venue overlooked the crashing waves below, with thousands upon thousands of white roses and blush peonies scenting the salty sea air. A live string quartet played our special song as we danced under a canopy of twinkling fairy lights and a luminous, full moon hanging overhead. Mark pulled me close in his arms, his hands strong and protective around my waist, his breath warm and loving against my ear as he whispered tenderly, "Elena, I promise with everything in me that I'll spend every single day of our lives together protecting you, cherishing you, supporting you, and making sure you never have to face even one single worry or hardship alone. You are my entire world, my safe harbor, my forever." For the first several golden years of our marriage, everything felt like one endless, perfect summer that would never end. Our modern dream home had floor-to-ceiling windows that flooded every single room with warm, natural sunlight, highlighting the soft textures, rich colors, and thoughtful details I had chosen so carefully with my designer's eye. The backyard infinity pool shimmered a perfect, inviting turquoise under the bright sun, and on warm, lazy evenings we would float side by side on inflatable loungers, sipping chilled rose from elegant glasses while watching the sky slowly turn from blue to pink to fiery orange. We talked dreamily about future adventures, long, lazy weeks wandering through the vineyards of Tuscany, tasting local wines, or romantic escapes to the dramatic cliffs of the Amalfi Coast where we would watch the sunset hand in hand. "We're building something real, lasting, and beautiful together here," Mark would say softly, leaning over to kiss my forehead with such genuine tenderness that it always made my heart flutter and swell with love. My parents called every single week like clockwork, their voices warm and full of surface-level pride. "How's the business going, darling?" my mother would ask in her polished tone. "Keep shining brightly and strongly. That's what keeps this entire family respected and strong." They rarely, if ever, asked about my deeper feelings, any quiet struggles, or how I was truly doing inside. It was almost always only about the visible, impressive successes and how they reflected on the family name. But even in that seemingly flawless paradise, tiny, almost invisible cracks were beginning to form if you looked closely enough and paid careful attention. Mark would sometimes return home well after midnight, his once crisp dress shirt carrying the faint but unmistakable, sweet musky trace of a woman's perfume that was definitely not mine, something heavier, more seductive, and completely unfamiliar. When I gently questioned him while we lay together in our king-size bed, he'd pull me close into his arms with a soft, reassuring laugh, stroking my hair soothingly. "Just another long, tedious client dinner that ran late, babe. You know how these endless networking events in the city drag on and on. Don't let it worry that beautiful. Mind of yours for even 1 second? I chose to believe him every single time because the alternative, doubting the man I had fallen so deeply in love with, felt far too painful and scary to even consider. My family's affection also always seemed subtly but undeniably tied to visible achievements, a new high-profile client featured in the newspaper, a glowing magazine article about my latest project, or another award added to the growing shelf in my studio. "We're so incredibly proud of you, Elena," they'd say at every family gathering, raising their glasses in a toast, but the warmth always felt conditional, like a bright spotlight that could be switched off instantly the moment the successes slowed or stopped. Almost without any real warning, the dark storm clouds began gathering and thickening last year. The economy tightened sharply and unexpectedly across the board. High-end clients who once begged for my designs and waited months for my availability started delaying projects indefinitely or canceling them outright, citing sudden market uncertainty, tightened budgets, and cautious spending. Bills began mounting like silent, accusing shadows on my home office desk. Vendor invoices, utility notices, loan repayment reminders, and supplier statements. I threw every single ounce of my energy, every last available penny, and every sleepless night I could manage into desperately trying to save my firm. I drained our joint savings account down to the very last dollar, cashed in the modest inheritance my late grandmother had left me with her handwritten note saying, "For rainy days. My dear Elena, use it wisely," and even took out a risky second mortgage on our beautiful home, telling myself over and over that it was just a temporary bridge to get us through. Late into those exhausting nights, I would sit completely alone at the cold marble kitchen island, surrounded by endless spreadsheets, empty coffee mugs, and scattered notes, my eyes burning and watering from staring at numbers that refused to improve no matter how hard I worked. Silent tears would occasionally slip down my cheeks as exhaustion, fear, and self-doubt pressed down on me like a heavy physical weight on my chest. Mark would eventually wander in, wrap his arms around me from behind in the dim light, and kiss the top of my head gently. "We're a real team in this, Elena. I'm handling important things on my end, too. Don't carry this entire burden by yourself. The storm will pass, I promise, and when it does, we'll come out even stronger and closer on the other side. I've got you always." His words, in those moments, gave me fragile but much-needed threads of hope on the darkest nights, helping me push through just one more day. One more call to a client, one more late night of planning. But the day the storm finally swallowed me whole arrived with brutal, unforgiving suddenness that left me reeling. I sat completely alone at that same marble kitchen island one gray, overcast afternoon, the house eerily quiet except for the distant, low hum of the refrigerator and the occasional drip of rain outside. My hands shook uncontrollably as I stared down at the final bank statements, showing devastating negative balances highlighted in bright, accusing red across every single account. Creditors were now calling my phone nonstop, their voices growing sharper, more impatient, and increasingly threatening with each message. My once thriving business, the creative passion and outlet I had poured my heart, soul, years of late nights, and countless sacrifices into, was collapsing beyond any hope of repair. My throat tightened so painfully I could barely draw a full breath. With fingers that trembled violently, I picked up the phone and dialed my parents first, my voice cracking and breaking like thin, fragile ice under too much pressure. "Mom, Dad, I need to talk to you right away. I'm in serious, serious trouble. We're broke. I've lost almost everything I've worked for my entire adult life." The long, heavy, almost suffocating silence that followed on the other end of the line felt like a physical punch straight to my chest, knocking every bit of air out of my lungs and leaving me dizzy. My mother's voice finally sliced through the quiet. tight and laced with sharp, unmistakable disappointment that cut deeper than any physical wound ever could. Elena, how on earth could you possibly let things spiral this badly and out of control? We raised you to be responsible, forward-thinking, and prepared for anything. My father took the phone from her, his tone cold, authoritative, and completely final. The same voice he used to close million-dollar deals in boardrooms. This family was built on strength, resilience, smart choices, and never showing weakness. Elena, if you can't hold your own weight anymore without constantly leaning on us, then perhaps it's time you learn the hard way exactly what real independence and consequences feel like. I drove to their mansion that same stormy evening, rain hammering relentlessly and angrily against my windshield like 1,000 accusing fingers, the wipers slashing back and forth furiously as if trying to clear away the pain. My heart pounded so violently inside my chest that I could hear the rushing blood in my ears and feel it throbbing in my temples. This was the same beloved house where I had blown out countless birthday candles surrounded by colorful balloons, excited family cheers, and piles of presents, where my father once looked at me with genuine, unconditional warmth in his eyes and called me his bright little star who would one day light up the entire world. When I finally stepped inside after parking, shaking the rain off my coat onto the floor, the familiar scents of polished wood, fresh flowers, and lingering dinner aromas now felt suffocating, foreign, and almost hostile. My mother sat rigidly upright on the pristine white sofa in the formal living room, her posture perfect as always, not a single strand of her carefully styled hair out of place, even in this moment. My father stood imposingly by the grand stone fireplace, arms crossed tightly over his chest like a stern judge preparing to deliver a life-altering sentence. Claire was there too, elegantly perched on an armchair with a glass of chilled white wine held gracefully in her manicured hand. Her expression one of cool, detached pity, as if I were a distant, unfortunate acquaintance who had wandered in uninvited and overstayed her welcome. Mom, Dad, Claire, please just listen to me with open hearts for once, I whispered, my voice breaking completely as hot, uncontrollable tears began streaming down my flushed cheeks, mixing with the rain still clinging to my skin and hair. The market changed so suddenly and brutally. Clients vanished overnight without warning. I fought with everything I had left in me, every waking hour, every dollar I could scrape together, every last bit of creativity and determination. I just need a little bridge of support, enough to restart my firm on a smaller, humbler scale. I'll pay every single cent back with interest if that's what it takes. I'm still your daughter. I'm still part of this family. My mother's perfectly arched eyebrows narrowed with clear, undisguised disappointment that pierced straight through my already fracturing heart like shards of glass. Darling, we didn't raise you to make such careless, reckless mistakes with your future and our family's reputation. What will all our friends and important business associates think when word of this inevitably gets out? It reflects badly on all of us. My father didn't soften even the slightest bit, his jaw set like carved stone. We cannot and will not keep carrying anyone who has become dead weight in this family. Elena, it weakens the entire foundation we've built. Fix your own mess completely on your own, or don't show your face around here again until you have real, tangible results to show for it. Claire set her wine glass down with a delicate, almost dismissive clink on the marble side table and added in a quiet, almost casual tone that somehow hurt the most of all. It's honestly becoming quite embarrassing for the whole family, sis. The name we all share means something important and valuable in this city. You have to understand that we simply can't afford to be dragged down by this kind of failure. I begged through choking, heaving sobs that made my shoulders shake violently and my breath come in short gasps. I reminded them in broken, desperate sentences of every single time I had been there for them without question or hesitation. staying up until dawn, helping plan their charity events down to the smallest floral arrangement and seating chart, holding Claire's hand tightly and bringing her favorite comfort meals during her difficult first pregnancy when she was bedridden, terrified and emotional, being the reliable, low-maintenance daughter who never caused any public embarrassment or asked for much in return. But their faces remained cold, unmoved, and like carved statues with no emotion. After what felt like an eternity of my pleading and their silence, my mother finally rose gracefully from the sofa and walked me personally to the heavy front door, her heels clicking sharply and coldly on the marble floor. "Don't come back here until you've sorted this entire situation out properly and respectably on your own," she said, her voice completely stripped of any maternal warmth, love, or softness I had known my entire life. The heavy wooden door clicked shut behind me with a final, echoing finality that reverberated through my entire body like a death knell, leaving me standing alone in the pouring rain once more. I drove home through blinding sheets of rain, my vision completely blurred by hot, endless tears. The car swerving slightly on the wet roads as raw emotions overtook every rational thought. When I finally stumbled through the front door of our once happy, once loving home, soaked to the bone and emotionally broken, Mark was waiting calmly on the living room couch, casually scrolling on his phone as if nothing catastrophic had just happened to me. I collapsed into his arms, my body racked with uncontrollable, heaving sobs that left me gasping for air. "They threw me away, Mark? My own parents and sister? Like I was worthless garbage the moment I stopped being successful and useful. How could they do this to their own daughter?" He held me for a brief, mechanical moment, his hands rubbing my back without real warmth, then gently but firmly pulled back to look directly at me. His expression was strangely calm and composed, almost carrying a subtle hint of quiet relief. "I tried to prepare you emotionally for this possibility months ago. Elena, your family has always only truly loved and supported the version of you that was winning, shining, and making them look good to the outside world." Deep down, I knew with absolute certainty exactly how coldly and quickly they would react the second you admitted you were broke and vulnerable. In that freezing, devastating instant, a deeper, more painful fracture split wide open inside my chest, widening all the cracks that had already been forming for months. He had known all along. He hadn't fought for me even a little. He hadn't even appeared surprised, outraged, or protective on my behalf. But at that moment, I still had no full idea just how calculated, premeditated, and cruel his own hidden role in my rapid downfall truly was. That night, as I lay wide awake in our king-size bed staring blankly at the dark ceiling while the rain continued to pound relentlessly against the roof and windows, a profound, suffocating loneliness settled over me like a heavy, wet blanket I couldn't shake off no matter how hard I tried. For the first time in my entire life, I felt completely adrift, unseen, unloved, and utterly disposable. The weeks and months that followed dissolved into a relentless, suffocating, never-ending nightmare from which I couldn't seem to wake no matter how hard I prayed, how many tears I shed, or how desperately I tried to hold on to hope. I would jolt violently awake in the dead of night, gasping desperately for air, my chest constricted so tightly it felt as if invisible iron bands were squeezing the life out of my lungs and heart. The beautiful home we had so lovingly filled with shared memories, laughter, tender moments, and future plans now echoed with painful emptiness and was haunted daily by official foreclosure notices that arrived in stark, impersonal white envelopes, each one feeling like another sharp slap across my already bruised and bleeding face. My phone, which used to buzz constantly with affectionate family check-ins, excited client inquiries, and invitations to glamorous events, fell into an eerie, deafening silence that amplified every anxious, self-doubting thought in my head. Old friends who once competed to have us at their weekend parties, dinners, and vacations suddenly became perpetually too busy or out of town. Their excuses feeling paper thin, rehearsed, and painfully transparent. Overnight, I had become invisible, erased, and forgotten from the glittering social circle I once navigated with ease and confidence. Mark's transformation from loving, attentive partner to distant, cold stranger was swift, shocking, and devastating in its complete emotional detachment. The affectionate man who used to surprise me with fresh flowers on random Tuesdays, bring me coffee in bed with a lingering good morning kiss, or hold me close when I was stressed, now barely made eye contact when he was even home. He began staying out later and later, sometimes not returning until the early hours of the morning, his excuses growing thinner, more irritated, and less believable with each passing day. Major deadline on a confidential project that can't wait. He had met her curtly while grabbing his keys and avoiding my pleading gaze entirely. One particularly and rainy evening, while frantically searching for a missing utility bill in his side of the closet, my fingers brushed against a folded luxury hotel receipt and key card tucked deep in the pocket of his favorite navy blazer. It was for an upscale suite downtown on the day. He had sworn up and down that he was attending an important multi-day conference out of the city. My stomach twisted violently with a wave of nausea and icy dread that made my knees buckle and my vision blur. When I confronted him later that night in the brightly lit kitchen, my hands shaking so badly I could hardly hold up the crumpled evidence, my voice emerged as a trembling, broken whisper full of pain. "Mark, what is this? Please, for the love of everything we've shared together, just be completely honest with me this one time. I can't take any more lies or secrets right now." He let out a long, exaggerated sigh of pure exasperation, running a hand through his hair as if I were a dramatic child, throwing yet another unnecessary tantrum over nothing important. "Elena, you're becoming obsessively paranoid because your entire world is crumbling around you right now. Stop twisting this personal crisis of yours into something about me when you're clearly the one who let the business slip through your fingers and cause all this mess." His eyes deliberately avoided mine the entire time, and that emotional coldness, that complete and utter detachment, sliced through me far deeper than any shouted argument or angry words ever could have. Desperate to survive, to keep some shred of dignity, and to simply put food on the table, I took the only immediate job I could secure quickly, waiting tables at a small, warmly lit neighborhood cafe downtown called Morning Light. It was a humble, no-frills place with checkered tablecloths, the comforting smell of fresh brewed coffee, baked pastries, and home-style meals. The kind of establishment I hadn't worked in since my struggling college days, when every tip meant the difference between eating a proper meal or going hungry. My once soft, perfectly manicured hands that had delicately arranged silk pillows, chosen luxurious fabrics, and created beauty for wealthy clients, quickly became rough, reddened, and calloused from carrying scorching hot plates balanced precariously on my arms for hours, scrubbing sticky counters and floors at closing time, and dealing with impatient or rude customers who snapped their fingers for refills or complained about minor things. Some of the regular patrons eventually recognized me from my previous glamorous life in design circles. A kind older woman with gentle eyes and silver hair once leaned across the counter during the slow afternoon moment and asked softly, "Weren't you the talented young interior designer who completely transformed that stunning waterfront penthouse last year? It was featured in the magazine and looks so beautiful." I forced a brave, trembling smile through the burning wave of humiliation rising in my throat and replied quietly, "Yes, that was me once upon a time. I'm figuring things out one small, painful step at a time now, ma'am. Thank you for remembering me." Every single exhausting evening, I would drag my aching feet, sore back, blistered hands, and emotionally drained body back to whatever temporary shelter I could find, hoping against all rational hope that Mark might offer even the smallest crumb of comfort, a simple hug, or a few kind words of solidarity. Instead, one fateful rainy night, I overheard him speaking in low, secretive, conspiratorial whispers from inside his home office, the door left slightly ajar as if he no longer cared if I heard. I froze in the hallway, my heart hammering wildly against my ribs like a trapped bird desperate to escape. Yes, she's completely broken now. Her family cut her off cold, exactly as we anticipated they would. It all worked out even more perfectly than we planned. She still has no real idea how deep this goes or how long I've been ready. The blood drained instantly from my face, leaving me dizzy, lightheaded, and on the verge of fainting. I pushed the door open with what little strength I had left, and he ended the call abruptly, his face flushing not with guilt or shame, but with clear annoyance at being interrupted. "Who's that on the phone, Mark?" I demanded, my voice barely rising above a shattered whisper as fresh tears burned hot paths down my cheeks. "Tell me the truth. I deserve at least that much after everything I've given and lost." He looked at me then with a chilling mixture of superficial pity and thinly veiled disgust, as if I were a pitiful creature he had grown tired of dealing with and pretending to love. "Elena, did you honestly believe all these years that I married you out of pure, unconditional, fairy tale love? Your family's money, their powerful connections, their prestigious social status, those were the real foundations holding this marriage together from the beginning. I knew with absolute certainty that they would abandon you like yesterday's worthless trash the very moment you stopped being a shiny, successful asset to them. I've been quietly preparing and positioning myself for this exact moment for a very long time." That night, in a cold, matter-of-fact tone that chilled me to the marrow of my bones and made my skin crawl, he confessed even more devastating details without a single tear, hint of remorse or softening of his expression. He had been secretly siphoning and diverting substantial sums of money from our joint accounts for well over a year, funneling it into hidden personal investments and accounts I never knew existed. He had been carrying on a full affair with another woman, someone he casually described as more exciting, less burdened by all your emotional needs and constant worries. Worst of all, my own sister Claire had been partially aware of his plans almost from the start, and had even actively helped him conceal and manage some of the mounting hidden debts. Sharing private mocking text messages and phone conversations with him about how naive, soft, overly trusting, and idealistic I had always been throughout our lives. The sister I had loyally defended during family arguments, supported emotionally through her own heartbreaks and difficult pregnancies, celebrated every milestone with, and loved like my best friend, she had betrayed me too, in ways that felt like a knife twisting slowly and deliberately in an already open, bleeding wound. The pain that crashed over me in that moment was so visceral, so overwhelming, and so complete it felt as if my heart was being physically ripped apart inside my chest, piece by jagged piece, with no anesthesia. That very same night, with hands that trembled so violently I could barely zip the suitcase through my blinding, endless tears, I packed what little I could carry, just a few changes of practical clothes, a handful of cherished old family photos that now felt like cruel lies, and my late grandmother's delicate gold necklace that had always symbolized quiet strength and resilience to me. I left our once beautiful home for good with nothing but the clothes on my back, a broken heart, and the shattering realization that everything I thought was real had been built on sand. I spent 3 terrifying, sleepless nights sleeping fitfully in the back seat of my car in a dimly lit, nearly empty parking lot on the outskirts of the city, jumping at every passing shadow, every slamming car door, every unfamiliar voice or footstep, my body aching from the cramped position and the constant fear of being vulnerable and completely alone in the world. Then, like a small, unexpected miracle shining through the darkness, Maria, the kind-hearted, no-nonsense older waitress at the cafe with warm eyes, a gentle southern drawl, and a lifetime of her own quiet hardships, noticed my profound exhaustion. The dark circles under my eyes, the way my shoulders slumped with defeat, and the quiet tremble in my voice when I spoke. One closing shift after the last customer had left, and the cafe was dark except for the soft glow of the exit sign. She pulled me aside gently but firmly and said softly, "No decent human being should have to face this level of loneliness, pain, and hardship completely alone, sweetheart. My couch isn't fancy or big, but it's yours for as long as you need it. Come stay with me. No questions, no judgment. Just rest." For the first time in what felt like an eternity, someone extended simple, uncomplicated, genuine human kindness to me without expecting success, status, perfection, or anything in return. I cried openly in her small, cozy living room that first night as she handed me a steaming mug of chamomile tea with honey and a warm blanket. Sitting beside me, without saying a word until my tears finally slowed, the all-encompassing loneliness that wrapped around me during those long months was crushing, relentless and suffocating in its depth. In the quiet, heavy hours after Maria had gone to bed and the apartment was dark and still, I would sit curled up in a corner of her modest living room, knees pulled tightly to my chest, replaying every happy memory like a torturous, endless film reel on repeat, our joyful wedding dance under the stars with fairy lights twinkling overhead, lazy Sunday mornings tangled warmly in soft bedsheets laughing about silly things, boisterous family holidays filled with overlapping conversations, love and warmth that I had mistakenly believed was unconditional. I cried until my eyes swelled completely shut and my throat felt raw and burning from the force of it. I screamed silently into thick pillows so Maria wouldn't wake and worry about me. I questioned the very core of my existence in endless, looping thoughts. Had I ever been truly loved for the person I was deep inside, with all my flaws, dreams, and vulnerabilities? Or had I only ever been valued for what I could provide, achieve, or make others look good? Some of the darkest nights, the despair pressed down so heavily on my chest that I wondered numbly if continuing to fight and get up every day was even worth the constant, exhausting pain. Yet, buried somewhere deep in that seemingly endless tunnel of darkness and despair, a tiny, stubborn, flickering flame of inner resilience, survival instinct, and quiet determination began to glow faintly and grow stronger with each passing day I forced myself to keep going. I started waking before dawn, no matter how exhausted my body felt, working grueling double shifts at the cafe while carefully saving every single hard-earned tip in a small glass jar hidden under Maria's couch for safekeeping. I hesitantly reached out by email to an old, respected mentor from my design school days who had always seen genuine talent and potential in me beyond the surface glamour, family name, or money. Bit by painstaking bit, I began accepting tiny, humble freelance design projects again, refreshing the tired interior of a small local bakery with warm, inviting colors, clever space solutions, and a shoestring budget that made the owners cry happy tears. Or helping a modest neighborhood boutique redesign its window displays to attract more foot traffic and joy. The work was far from glamorous or high-paying, but each completed project reminded me with quiet, healing power why I had originally fallen so deeply in love with creating beauty. It was honest. It came entirely from my own hands and healed heart, and it belonged solely to me, quietly, methodically, and without telling a single soul. I started meticulously gathering and organizing every single scrap of concrete evidence I could safely find, old bank transaction records. I printed from forgotten emails, recovered deleted messages and screenshots from Mark's old laptop that he had carelessly left behind, detailed timelines of suspicious activities and dates. The full horrifying picture slowly emerged like a nightmare unfolding in slow motion. Mark had been coldly and patiently planning his clean, profitable exit strategy for well over a year, waiting like a predator in the shadows for my business to fail so he could walk away financially comfortable and unburdened while I was left emotionally and financially destroyed in the rubble. My own family had not only been aware of the growing cracks, but had quietly approved and even subtly encouraged the situation, believing in their arrogance that such harsh hardship would toughen me up, teach me a necessary life lesson, or force me to become more like Claire. The initial raw, paralyzing agony I felt slowly, painfully transformed over time into something sharper, clearer, and more focused, a quiet, steely, burning resolve deep in my core that grew stronger every day. I was no longer the shattered, begging woman desperately clinging to scraps of love and approval from those who never truly deserved me. I was slowly, determinedly, and against all odds becoming the strong, self-reliant, powerful woman who would one day rise and fully reclaim every single piece of her stolen power, dignity, worth, and future. It took me 18 long, grueling, soul-testing months filled with relentless early mornings before the sun rose, late nights working by lamplight until my eyes burned, physical exhaustion that made every muscle ache, emotional ups and downs that tested my limits, and countless quiet moments where I wanted to give up but refused to let the pain win. But I rose gradually, authentically, and powerfully from the ashes, piece by painstaking piece, becoming stronger, wiser, more grounded, more self-assured, and far more at peace than I had ever been in my previous perfect life. I poured every available hour, every saved penny, and every ounce of renewed creative passion into slowly rebuilding my interior design business from a tiny, sunlit rented studio space in a modest part of town that I could afford on my own. I worked late into the nights by the soft glow of a single desk lamp, sketching fresh concepts and mood boards that now flowed from a much deeper, more genuine, and fully healed place inside my heart. Designs that prioritize real comfort, emotional resonance, honest beauty, and the stories of the people who would live there rather than superficial impressiveness or status. My revived work carried an unmistakable authenticity and soul that clients began to notice, talk about, and recommend organically. Word started spreading quietly but steadily among a new, more grounded circle of people who truly valued substance, heart, integrity, and connection over flashy status or family connections. I paid off every last lingering debt with money earned solely through my own sweat, tears, calloused hands, and unyielding determination. Eventually, I saved enough to purchase a small, cozy one-bedroom apartment that felt entirely, beautifully, and peacefully mine, filled with soft, warm lighting I chose myself, thriving houseplants I nurtured with care and love each morning, comfortable secondhand furniture I restored with my own hands, and absolutely no haunting ghosts or painful memories of the past lingering in the corners or shadows. Throughout the entire healing and rebuilding process, I never allowed myself to forget or bury the deep betrayals that had nearly destroyed me. I had meticulously preserved, organized, backed up, and protected every single document, every recorded conversation snippet, every piece of digital and financial evidence in a secure, hidden file that I reviewed often for strength. One calm, clear evening, after months of careful, strategic preparation, inner reflection, and quiet prayer, I made the deliberate, empowered decision to release the entire compiled dossier. I sent it first to the appropriate legal and financial authorities, who were already investigating cases of misconduct and fraud in business circles. I also shared carefully selected portions strategically with longtime mutual business contacts, influential family friends in our old social network, and a few discreet, reputable media outlets known for exposing hypocrisy, conditional relationships, and hidden betrayals among the elite. The undeniable truth erupted like a long-delayed, precisely placed explosion that no one could ignore, spin, or escape. Mark's once promising consulting firm faced immediate, thorough investigations, audits, public scrutiny, and damaging consequences. Longtime clients and partners dropped him overnight, unwilling to risk association with the unfolding scandal, ethical breaches, and loss of trust. The other woman he had chosen over me during my darkest, most vulnerable time abandoned him almost instantly the moment she realized there was no longer any hidden fortune, luxury lifestyle, or financial security left to claim. One particular stormy, windswept night several weeks later, he appeared unannounced at the doorstep of my new apartment building, completely soaked to the bone from the pouring rain, his designer clothes clinging pathetically to his frame and his hair plastered to his forehead. He literally fell to his knees on the wet concrete steps, looking up at me with desperate, red-rimmed eyes full of regret. "Elena, I was such a blind, selfish fool. I made the single worst mistake of my entire life by underestimating you and betraying what we had. I still love you. I realize now that I always did in my own messed up way. Please, I'm begging you, give us one more chance to rebuild something real this time. I'll do anything." I stood there looking down at the man who had once been the center of my entire universe, the person I had trusted with my hopes, my body, my dreams, and my future. Surprisingly, I felt only a profound, calm sadness mixed with genuine pity for the emptiness and regret I now saw so clearly in him. My voice came out steady, clear, strong, and completely free of the tremors that used to shake it. "You knew with full awareness that my family would throw me away, like I was nothing when I was at my absolute most vulnerable and broken. You not only knew, you planned around it, encouraged elements of it, and used it to your advantage while I was drowning in pain. You watched me shatter into pieces night after night and chose to do nothing to help, protect, or stand by me. There is no us left to save or rebuild. Mark, I hope you eventually find whatever peace or redemption you can in this life, but it will never, ever involve me again." I closed the door gently but with unshakable finality and never opened it, or my heart, to his repeated pleas. Calls, messages, or flowers again dot my family's carefully curated, picture-perfect public image cracked wide open and began crumbling rapidly under the unrelenting weight of the exposed truths. The widespread revelation of their deeply conditional love, emotional neglect, involvement in questionable financial dealings, and the way they had abandoned their own daughter caused their once impeccable social reputation to plummet almost overnight. Their business interests, partnerships, and social invitations took significant, tangible hits as well. My father's company stock suffered a noticeable decline as whispers, questions, and concerns spread through their professional circles. My mother called me one quiet afternoon out of the blue, her usually composed, controlled voice cracking with what sounded like genuine, unfamiliar tears, the first time in my memory that she had ever allowed herself to sound truly vulnerable, afraid, or sorry over the phone. "Elena, sweetheart, everything is falling apart around us. The family is fracturing in ways I never imagined possible. We need you now more than we ever have before, please." Claire reached out separately through a long, emotional message thread filled with excuses, justifications, tears, and claims that she had been misled and manipulated by Mark and was now deeply, deeply sorry for her part in the pain she caused me. I listened patiently and without explosive anger to all their apologies, desperate pleas and attempts at reconnection, feeling only a quiet, mature grief for the family bonds and unconditional love I had once innocently believed were real and unbreakable. After giving them the space to speak their piece fully and completely, I finally spoke the words I had carried, rehearsed, refined, and strengthened silently in my heart for so many painful, lonely months. You made the deliberate choice to throw me away, to turn your backs completely when I needed genuine love, support, basic human compassion, and a soft place to land the most. In doing so, you showed me with painful clarity exactly how shallow, conditional, and fragile your affection for me truly was all along. I choose to forgive you today, not because any of you necessarily deserve that forgiveness, but because I refuse to carry the heavy poison of bitterness and resentment inside my healed heart any longer. It would only continue to hurt me and hold me back. But I will never allow any of you back into my life or my inner circle. That chapter is permanently closed. I have chosen myself, my peace, my future, and my worth, and that choice is final and non-negotiable. The beautiful evening I finally stood alone on the small, private balcony of my new apartment, wrapped in a soft blanket against the gentle evening breeze, watching the sun set in brilliant, breathtaking strokes of fiery orange, soft pink, glowing gold, and deep purple across the vast sky. A deep, profound, and long-awaited healing peace washed over me like a warm, cleansing wave from the ocean. I had lost nearly everything I once held dear: my marriage, my family's approval, my previous lifestyle, much of my pride, and the illusions I had lived with. But in the long, difficult process of rising again, I had discovered and claimed something infinitely more precious and enduring: my own unbreakable inner strength, my authentic sense of self-worth that no longer depended on anyone else's validation or approval, and a liberating freedom that comes from knowing deep in my bones that I could rebuild an entire meaningful, beautiful life from absolute rock bottom if life ever demanded it again. If there is one single, powerful, and lasting lesson I hope you, dear listener, carry away with you from my long, painful, but ultimately redemptive journey, it is this: never, ever tie your deepest sense of personal value, identity, happiness, or worth to the approval, affection, or presence of people, even family, who only choose to stay, love, and support you when you are visibly shining, successful, and making them look good. Blood relation or shared history does not automatically guarantee loyalty, unconditional love, or true emotional safety. Moments of genuine hardship, financial struggle, or the raw revelation of someone's lack of money will almost always expose people's true character faster, more honestly, and more painfully than almost anything else life can throw at us. When the very people who should have been your strongest safety net, your soft place to land, instead choose to push you forcefully off the emotional edge into darkness and abandonment, do not waste your precious remaining energy, tears, or years desperately begging them to pull you back up or change their minds. Instead, take that searing pain, that profound betrayal, and consciously use it as the fiercest fuel to quietly, determinedly build your own strong, beautiful wings, no matter how heavy, how broken, or how weary your heart feels in the earliest, darkest days of the process. Rise at your own pace. Rise with quiet grace, hard-earned dignity, and growing inner power. Rise into the fullest, most authentic, and radiant version of yourself that you were always meant to become. Because the most profound, most beautiful, and ultimately most satisfying form of revenge against those who tried to break you is not about publicly destroying them or making them suffer in return. It is simply about becoming someone so whole, so resilient, so quietly radiant, and so deeply at peace that they could never again break you. Never control your worth, and never again deserve even the smallest place in your hard-won, beautiful life. Thank you, truly, and from the very bottom of my now healing heart, for sitting with me through every single tear, every wave of despair, every small quiet victory, and every step of this deeply personal journey. If you have ever experienced the sharp sting of betrayal by your own family or by the one person you trusted and loved most deeply in this world, please know with absolute certainty that you are far from alone in that pain. Your feelings are completely valid. Your strength is real even when it doesn't feel like it. And most importantly, your unique story is nowhere near finished. It is only turning the page to a new, brighter chapter you get to write with your own hands. Heal gently and at your own sacred pace. Grow steadily in your own time and in your own way. And one unexpected, beautiful day, when the light finally returns fully, you will look back with clearer eyes and realize that the deepest, darkest soil of that painful season was quietly, lovingly preparing you to bloom even more vibrantly, more powerfully, and more authentically than you ever could have imagined before, until we meet again in another story of resilience, rising, and redemption. Please remember to protect your tender, precious heart with fierce, unwavering love and healthy boundaries, because it is the most irreplaceable, beautiful treasure you will ever carry through this life.